Hello everyone and welcome to part 5 of our Wordle project. So far we have designed the front end of our project, but not completely yet. We are going to come back and make some improvements for sure. But for now, let's concentrate on the back end a little bit and have that. For example, now that user can type something here and hit enter, and the form gets submitted, and we want to submit the format after that. And by those improvements, I mean something, for example, users should be able to use arrow keys in order to navigate between inputs. Now, actually, for example, if we are here, user has to use the mouse in order to click on other inputs. So using arrow keys and things like so, some improvements are possible to be made in future. But for now, you can see that we have created something that's submitted. We see that when we submit things, because we have this in our form submit. So in order to submit that, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to go inside our web and create a new route. And we are going to say whoever sends a post request to the address that I want to specify, for example, Wordle, for example, check. You are going to call something that I want here. For example, you are going to call something from Wordle controller, Wordle controller. So this is something that we need to make. So let's go ahead and say PHP artisan. So rather than PHP artisan, I have set a shortcut, so I can say PA make a controller. And the name of the controller is going to be Wordle controller. So I'm going to create a new controller and hit Control J to minimize that. And from Wordle controller, you are going to call a method and call check. And we are going to set a name for this, and we can see how we can actually use this name. And the name is going to be Wordle.check. So for the names, we use or separate things with dot. This is more common. And don't forget to put the semicolon at the end. So this is a new route that we have registered, and inside our Wordle controller we can open this and create that function that we wanted with a public function, and we set the function is going to be check, and this is the function that we are going to write. So this is for a start, we are going to just dump and die you arrived here. This is the only thing that we are going to dump and die, and say with a semicolon, put that there. So inside our welcome, we are going to send a request to that URL that we have here. So I can actually create a new variable const, for example, call it, for example, address. The address is going to be a route. We are going to use a function called route, and this route function is created using Ziggy. As you can see, there's something Ziggy View uses in order to get all the Laravel routes and access to them. So now we can use route and the name of the route. What name did we use for this route? We use the name Wordle.check, right? So the good thing about using route names is that if in future for some reason we decide to change the URL someone told us, we no longer have to go to different places and change everything there, because we are using route names rather than URLs and things like that. So that's why if we even change the URL, we do not have to change our welcome.view component or wherever we have used this address. So now that we have this address, we can actually console.log this address and take a look at it and see what this is. As you can see, let's refresh this thing here again, and we have a problem. We forgot to use this. So we have used landing controller, what we forgot to use Wordle controller. And also we need to say class. There's something that we forgot. So now we can actually submit things. As you can see, now when we submit it, you can see this is it, and this is the address that is being outputted, and everything is great, as you can see. Yeah. So now that we have access to the address, we need to send this thing a data. How can we send data, or how can we access to the values of these inputs? Well, considering the things that I told you, you might think we might use refs and get the value and things like that, but there's a much easier way for this one. The reason that I use ref here, because I wanted to focus on those elements, so we needed the DOM element in that case. So that's why since I had the DOM element already, so that's why I used value there. But there is a much easier way. In in VueJS, there's something called vModel. For example, inside my data, I'm going to create a variable in order to store everything that user types in inputs. Well, I can go ahead and define so many different variables, for example, for each one of them, which is absolutely a ridiculous idea. Or we can use an array in order to input all of them, or the best thing is to use an object. So I'm going to create a new object and call it, for example, word. The word that user is typing is going to be an empty object for start. So, and I'm going to create assign something to this welcome, and also let's hit Alt Shift F in order to make everything. When we use Alt Shift F, it uses something called prettier here. As you can see in the configuration, it's set on prettier, and prettier tries to make it pretty and change that. So, and also the type of this input is going to be text. I don't know why the type is being empty. For what reason, I don't know. So, and also, so now that we have that, there's something we can add to this, and that's called vModel. This vModel helps us to that whatever that user types inside this input is going to go inside that variable, what variable name that we are going to use. So the variable that I'm going to use is word j. So it's going to inside word 1 or word 2, word 3 or word 4. And since we already know what is the current guess or current row, we do not need to have that I as well. Also, now that I think about it, this I and j here, as you can see, kind of now that I think about it, we do not need the I actually. We only needed the j because the I is going to be the current row that user is on. But let's have that, because in future we might decide to allow user to, for example, navigate using arrow keys to the right and left and bottom, top and bottom and things like that. It's possible that we want to do something like that. So let's leave it at that. So let's come back here. So inside our address, now that we have a word, we can also take a look at the word as well. So let's come back here, console.log. Where the thing went? Yes, it's here. So also our address, and also let's take a look at the word. And also, I told you, don't forget to use this when you are inside this export default area. Inside our template, we only use the word alone, but here to access the data, other methods, we are going to use this. Don't forget to use this. So now that we are here, you can see I can say now that so now we have a problem. So because all of them they have the same value, because all of them now have the word j, so that's why all of them are going to be d, because the value of all of them are going to be same. So that's why we need to create it like this and say word I and j. But there is going to be a problem if I use it like this, word I and j. Let's hit save. And yeah, as soon as we hit save, you see these a lot of things. It says trying to get properties of undefined. Okay, so the problem is, let's see, when we use word j alone and hit Control S, save it, hit refresh, we can see there is no error because, well, the word is an object, okay, but word itself is defined, yes, and word, for example, word 1, word dot 2, word dot 3, they are not defined. Yes, they are not defined, but when we use it inside a vModel, it will be automatically defined and attached to this one. Okay, so it says okay, let's find the word. Yes, we have a word. We don't have a word j, it's okay. But when we use word I.j, it goes ahead and says, we have a word, yes. Do we have a word dot one, which I would need to create something and add to this, and it says, we do not have a word dot one to create a word dot one dot two for it. So that's why we face a problem. So one dimension is okay, but two dimensions is not okay. So that's the problem that we face. So if we go ahead like this, we are going to face an error. Okay, so in order to fix this problem, the best way that I can think of is to make it one dimension, but include both I and j inside that thing. So we are going to say $I inside this with $J inside this. So now we have that. We have an object, and the keys are both mentioned. The keys are different for each single of inputs, but it's one dimension, and we are not going to face a problem. So if we type something inside this, we can see now we do not have that problem anymore, because each input has a different V model. So that's why this is it. So here, and now if we submit the things, you can see this is the URL that we have. So the URL is okay. And this is the proxy or the data that we are sending. We has a 1 is D, F, G, D, F, and so all of them are present. So and now that we are going to apply some validation, some front-end validation as well, for sure. We need to have some front-end validation as well. But for now, let's just focus on sending these data to the backend. So now that we have the address, we have the data, so we can actually put that inside our data. So const data equals to this word. This is the data that we are going to send. Now it's time to use axios. So since axios is already defined, if we go inside our app.js, for example, the routes were defined in Ziggy, but in here, if we take a look at this, there's some called bootstrap.js, and as you can see, it's using axios and it's taking care of axios for us. So here we can actually start to use axios. So we can say axios.post. So we can say send post request to which address? This is the address that you need to send the post request, and you need to send these data. After you send this, then you are going to be received a response. So I'm not going to use semicolon here. So let's clean the semicolons, because semicolons, now that I think about it, I'm not going to use semicolons, because you either have to use semicolon everywhere or not to use semicolon at all. Not because this way looks more pretty. That's why that's the reason that I'm saying. So then after you send the axios request, you are going to receive a response. So and this is the response. So let's take a look at the response that we are receiving. So rather than using dump and die, let's return something. When we return something, for example, return an array, Laravel is smart enough to create a response. For example, create a response with a status of 200, and the data of that response is going to be data that we send. For example, we can, after everything is finished, we say success equaled true or false. For example, send a success of true or false, and say that, for example, corrects, for example, where the words A and D, for example, the words A and D were correct, and wrongs, okay, and the wrongs, not wrongs, the positions wrong, position. So say wrong positions are going to be, for example, S and D. For S and, for example, Q. For example, the user has entered a word, and we are going to send a response and say these words were correct, the words that the user said, and rather than A and D and S and Q, it's better to send the index of those words. For example, because it's possible to be more than one character inside that, we are going to say the character number 1 and number 3 were okay, and were completely fine, and the character number 5 only, it was correct, but the position was wrong. So obviously the other one and the remaining characters are going to be wrong. And the success true, it means the everything went correctly and smooth. So now let's send the request again. Let's send this submit again. As you can see, this is the check, and you can see this is the preview. This is the response that it's sending us. And if we go inside our console, you can see this is something that we console.log. The status is 200. So it's sending back a response, and the response has .config, .data, .headers. So we can access those things inside our .data. .data corrects, .data wrongs, and things like that. So inside our welcome here, we can create an if statement here. We can say if, okay, res for response. Res.data.success is if everything was success, okay? You need to do something, and we are going to write all the logics that we want in future success. Else, you are going to alert something went wrong. And also, before then, we need to add something here, .catch. That catch for catching if it catched an error or something. If you catch something, whatever that it's returned, you are going to use the error for that, and you are going to, for example, console.log those errors. So console.log those errors. Okay, and alert again something went wrong, for example. But we are going to come back and improve this. We are going to use probably we are going to use a swell. But also there's something that I like to usually do. When user submits something, I want to make the form disable temporarily. So I can create a new variable and call it, for example, processing. So the processing is false by default, okay? And when we submit the form, I say this dot processing equals true. So you set the processing to true, and so now that we know everything is loading. And when you send the request and everything is finished, whether if it was successful, if it was wrong, because this block is for success and this block is for the if you catch anything, whatever it was. So create another block and I call it finally. And inside finally, well, I don't want the to have a name. For example, I wanted to use the returning values and call that return value res here. And here I call the returning value error. Here I do not want any returning value. So that's why I just use this parenthesis and that's it. So the only thing that I want to do is to set the value of processing to false. So this is the syntax for ECMAScript 6. So this is it. You only thing that you need to do, I don't care what is the return value or whatever it is. I just want to set the this processing to false. So that's it. So this is it. So now we have something that processing, which shows us that it's being loaded or not. So we assign that to disabled attribute of this one. Is going to be processing or not. And also we can show a loading, or if you want to, for example here, but again we may come back in future and make it more pretty. For example, just create a please wait here. That's it. Please wait, and say VF, because if we write this please wait here, it's going to be there forever. So and also we need to align this thing at center. So I'm going to give it a class. If I give it a text center class, yeah, it's working, because this text center class only works if we have access to what was it? Sometimes I'm terrible at names. I forget the name of so many things that I'm using like daily. So you can see text center is already defined, and at the moment I do not remember the name of the Tailwind. Yeah, Tailwind CSS. Like I have used the word Tailwind like 1,000 times in my life, but now I cannot remember the name of it. I'm terrible at names. So anyway, since we have access to, again, I forgot the name, whatever that was, Tailwind, and we can use the text center class and apply that to this. So please wait that we have. And we only show this please wait, so we give it a VF of processing. If the value of processing was true, we will see this please wait, but if it was false, which is false on default, we can no longer see it. So it is it. So when you hit submit, you can see the please wait for a short amount of time, and we will see that it's no longer there. But again, we'll come back in future and improve some UI UX of this thing that we have here. So far everything is great, and we can actually manage to send a request to backend, and this is it. But for now we are console.log in success and things like that. But in future we need to change, for example here submit. When you submit that, we need to apply the changes for not only rather than console.log in success. So now we have created a foundation that we can actually send a request to backend and catch the response of it. But the only thing that we need to do, we need to actually determine the word that user has entered, how many corrects that it have. So when the page is loaded, we assign a word to the user. We need to have a database, which inside that database create a table, and inside that table we need to have all the 5-character words present there. So these are something that we need to do. So for now, I think the video that we have loaded is recorded 9 minutes at the start and 13 minutes. So we have 20 minutes of video for now, because I was thinking to finish this video and start a new video. And I think, even though yes, the video is not that long enough, it's a little bit short compared to my other videos that we had, but since the thing that I want to do is a bit different, for example, I want to create a database of words and work with that. Since it's a bit different, it's a good idea, and I don't know how long it's gonna take. It's a good idea to leave that for another video. So this is it. It was we can say it was a short video compared to other videos that we had in this course. So this is it. That's enough for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Yeah.